Thank you so much, Brian, for that comprehensive feature, and that marks the end of the authoritative and bold news, Maisha Prime News, that airs Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. and 9 a.m. and in weekends, that is Saturday and Sunday at 1 p.m. Thank you for keeping it here, and I'm leaving you with the 4th episode of our special political segment, Presidents from Luoland by Bushebi Jr. Enjoy.
Wakati inafika ambaye kama wewe ni mwanasiasa mpaka uangalie kwenye ukuta na usome maneno ambayo yako kwenye ukuta.
On assuming office, President Kibaki did not appoint Odinga as Prime Minister in the new government, contrary to a pre-election memorandum of understanding.
After Kibaki was sworn in, the gates were closed. And the gates were closed by one person called Matere Kereri, the controller of State House. These are the new operators.
At least one provision had been changed. It was the provision of sharing government positions, sharing the management of state, whereby the president was Mwai Kibaki. Then below there was share equally this position, ministerial positions, permanent secretary, all that stuff. Now, it was then changed to say it may not necessarily be that way. That is now what brought the governments back.
Kenya's constitution had no provision for Prime Minister yet. Neither did he give LDP, Odinga's faction, half of the cabinet positions as per the MOU. He instead sought to entrench and increase his own NAC side in cabinet, even appointing members of parliament from the opposition parties, KANU and Ford people, to the cabinet. The perceived betrayal started a simmering disquiet, which in time led to an open rebellion and a split within the cabinet. A key point of disagreement was a proposed new constitution for the country, which was a major campaign issue that had united Kibaki's NAC and Odinga's LDP in the campaign.
They were doing this because they had been forced into a position. When we were first set up, we were working in a room smaller than the one that we are holding this interview in. If you look at the setup of the committee, there was a requirement that 3 of the experts had to be non-Kenyans. The level of tension between the Kenyan people was so high that Kenyans could not be trusted to sit in a room by themselves and do something in the interests of Kenya.
We agreed that President Kibaki will serve as president, but within 90 days, a constitutional moment had arisen where we are going now to amend the Katiba and create the position of Prime Minister, because we were going to have 2 deputy presidents, right? The one, Kibaki pleaded that he must start with the late Kijana Wamalwa, and I always felt they could have agreed on me to be the deputy to Kibaki, but that did not happen. We accepted Wamalwa to start, and then when Wamalwa died, it was expected I was going to be the deputy president. But that did not happen again.
This constitution included provisions to trim presidential powers to reign in what was seen as an autocratic presidency, a feature of both the Moi and first President Jomo Kenyatta's regimes, which had led to a lot of power abuse and an unaccountable leadership. Once in power, however, Kibaki's government instituted a constitutional committee which turned around and submitted a draft constitution that was perceived to consolidate presidential powers and weaken regional governments, contrary to the pre-election draft. Odinga opposed this and went on to campaign with his LDP cabinet colleagues on the referendum no side, opposing the president and his lieutenants in a bruising countrywide campaign.
Sasa mtashika adabu, sio? Na sisi tuko tayari kama wanachunga kwenda nao mpaka kule katika debe. Timu ya Orange imeshinda timu ya Ndizi, sivyo? Bao 10-0.
We had a constitutional stillbirth. We found ourselves between the devil and the deep blue sea. We don't want the old constitution. We have rejected the new one. We take the view that we have lost the momentum. President Kibaki is now sitting pretty, and there is really no urge to have a new constitutional dispensation.
When the document was put up to a referendum on 21st November in 2005, the government lost by a 57% to a 43% margin. Embarrassingly for Kibaki, out of 8 provinces, only one, the central province where his tribe, the Kikuyu, are dominant, voted yes for the document, isolating his own tribe from the rest of Kenya and exposing his campaign as ethnic-based. A shell-shocked and disappointed President Kibaki sacked the entire cabinet on 23rd of November in 2005.
Following the results of the referendum, it has become necessary for me, as the President of the Republic, to reorganize my government. I have directed that the offices of all ministers and all assistant ministers become vacant.
When it was reconstituted 2 weeks later, Odinga and the entire LDP group were left out. This led to the formation of a new opposition outfit, the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, and orange was the symbol for the no vote in the constitutional referendum.
Assure this House that I will be a very dynamic, steadfast, and honest speaker.
There will be a post of Prime Minister.
Hiyo tu tukumbuke, Mungu ametusaidia, lakini tumepoteza mengi.
I take the journey on the history lane to explore the philosophy, ideology, leadership and the cost paid by great leaders of the Luo nation. Here is the journey of Mzee Oginga Odinga and his son Raila Odinga. My name is Bushebi Jr.
Nipigwe teke sitarudi nyuma, nipigwe teke sitarudi nyuma, nipigwe pingo sitarudi nyuma, nipigwe pingo.
January 2006, Odinga was reported to have told the police that he believed his life was in danger, having received assassination threats. On July 12th in 2007, with Kibaki's re-election bid drawing close, Odinga alleged that the government was withholding identity cards from voters in opposition strongholds with the intention to skew the election in favor of Kibaki. He also claimed that the intended creation of 30 new constituencies was a means by the government to fraudulently engineer victory in the December 2007 parliamentary election. In August 2007, the Odinga's own Orange Democratic Movement Kenya suffered a setback when it split into two, with Odinga becoming head of the Orange Democratic Movement ODM, while the other faction, the ODM Kenya, was headed by Kalonzo Musyoka, who parted ways with Odinga. On 1st September 2007, the ODM elected Odinga as its presidential candidate in a national delegates conference held at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani in Nairobi.
We want to fix it because there is poverty, crippling poverty in this country. We want to fix it because of the inequality that this country is famous for. It is the third most unequal country in the world. We want to tell our colleagues that is why we want to fix it. Let me finish. Let me finish. By telling my brother Agwambo, now you have the mantle, my brother. Now you have the mantle of ODM. And I want to remind you of the words of a philosopher who said, a man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back to the crowd. Please look forward, don't look back. You are leading the orchestra, and this year, with you, with the ODM team, with this ODM leadership sitting in this auditorium, and millions outside there, we are sure that we will deliver an ODM government. Thank you.
Odinga received 2,656 votes. The only other candidates who received significant numbers of votes were Musalia Mudavadi with 391 and William Ruto with 368.
Silence. Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga scored 2,656.
The defeated candidates expressed their support for Odinga afterward, and Mudavadi was named as his running mate. Odinga then launched his presidential campaign in Uhuru Park in Nairobi on 6th October in 2007.
Tumesema ya kwamba tutaendelea nao, watabaki lakini watachaguliwa na wananchi. Tutaangalia hali ya kina mama katika nchi yetu. Kina mama wetu watapata fursa ya kushiriki katika maendeleo ya nchi yetu kama wanaume.
Odinga's bid for the presidency, however, failed when after the 27th December presidential election, the Electoral Commission declared Kibaki the winner on 30th December in 2007.
We did ask the Commission to allow agents from all parties, not just ODM, together with the Commission, to peruse all the 210 files to ascertain that the announcements that were being made here by the Commission were backed by Forms 16A and Forms 16, which form the basis of any legitimate announcement. Because an announcement that is made of figures that do not have Form 16A duly signed by the returning officer and 16A duly signed by the agent of the candidate is just a figure. It is not a result. The Commission graciously allowed us last night with agents from all parties to peruse files from all the 210 constituencies, and 48 constituencies did not have any documentation. The results that were announced here were just figures, computer printouts. It didn't have Form 16A, it didn't have Form 16, and therefore the figures that were announced here were just numbers assigned to candidates. And those are figures of the following constituencies. The following constituencies. That is the Gembe North, the Gembe South, Kandara, Ndia, Mwea, Kitutu Masaba, Madira, Kieni, South Mugirango, Nyaribari Masaba, Bonchari, West Mugirango, North Mugirango, Webuye, Kishugu, Pumula, Kimilili, Voi, Rongai, Starehe, Kinango, Laikipia West, Subukia, Naivasha, Mazioya, Kidunguri, Kiambaa, Katundu South, Juja, Manyata, Olkalao, Kuria, Kitutu Chache, Bomachoge, Kinangop, Makadara, South Imenti, Wajia West, Makueni, Galole, Mandera East, Ijara, Lakdera, Jujis, Saraka, Runyenjes, Turkana South, and Nakuru Town. The files of these constituencies just contained a computer printout with no document at all.
As ODM, despite having won the election, we have been open to speak to Mwai Kibaki at any instance. It is Mwai Kibaki and his group who have shown intransigence to any discussions. When Kufuor came here, they said that he was coming to have a cup of tea. You want to ask yourself, why would a president want to come and have a cup of tea in a country that is up in flames? The Minister for Transport the other day said that they have never wanted and they have never invited anybody to come to our country. It is the other side who are intransigent. We are prepared for a political solution so that this country can move forward, but the other side are scared because they know they stole the election and they do not want to sit on a table in which they are going to be told the truth.
Fellow Kenyans, we have in the last 2 days witnessed tensions running high in our nation. Kenyans are deeply disturbed and angered by the attempt of this government to steal this election through a process that was fraudulent at every step of the way. The people know that they voted to reject the incumbent and put in place a president and a government they will have faith in. That is why they have elected me as the president. I therefore ask that this current exercise and impasse can only be resolved through a national recount in Nairobi under the full glare of media watchfulness and the involvement of election observers. Only such a process will assure Kenyans that this was a credible election. Finally, I wish to appeal to President Mwai Kibaki to acknowledge and respect the will of the people of Kenya and honorably concede defeat.
Later, violence broke out in the country. The government's response was heavy-handed as it deployed police and paramilitary units to counter public protests. Following 2 months of unrest which led to the death of about 1,000 people and displacement of about 250,000, a deal between Odinga and Kibaki which provided for power sharing and the creation of the post of Prime Minister was signed in February 2008. It was brokered by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Odinga was sworn in as Prime Minister along with the power-sharing cabinet on 17th April in 2008. The post of Prime Minister was last held by Jomo Kenyatta between 1963 and 1964 following independence. Odinga is thus the second person in Kenya's history to hold the position.
The outgoing president shall hand over to the president the following instruments of power and authority: a sword and the Constitution.
Anakabidhiwa hivi sasa upanga, ndiyo ishara ya kwamba amekuwa amiri jeshi mkuu wa majeshi yote ya ulinzi ya Kenya. Ni kwa makofi, shangwe na nderemo.
The next presidential election in which Odinga was to run was the 2013 March poll involving Kibaki's handover of power. Uncertainty loomed over Odinga's main rivals, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, who had both been indicted by the ICC of The Hague for their alleged role in the 2007 election violence. Despite their pending case, the duo had been nominated by the Jubilee Party, with Uhuru as presidential candidate and Ruto as his running mate. Many felt they were unfit to run for the office before clearing their names from such serious crimes, while others felt that their opponents were trying to unfairly exploit the situation by eliminating them from the race and pave way for their easy victory.
Amiri jeshi mkuu wa majeshi yote ya ulinzi ya Kenya.
Odinga's party, Orange Democratic Movement, joined Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Party and Moses Wetangula's Ford Kenya Party in a coalition named Coalition for Reforms and Democracy CORD for the presidential race, with Odinga as the presidential candidate and Kalonzo as his running mate to face Jubilee's coalition consisting of Uhuru Kenyatta, the National Alliance (TNA), and William Ruto's United Republic Party (URP), Charity Ngilu's National Rainbow Coalition (NAC), and Najib Balala's Republican Congress (RC). However, in a press conference shortly after the results were announced, Odinga said that the election had been marred by massive failures of the biometric voter registration (BVR) kits, EVID, also known as electronic voter identification or poll books, RTS, also known as Results Transmission System or Tallying System, and the RPS, also known as Results Presentation or Transmission Systems.
That the constitutionally sanctioned process of electing a new set of leaders to take us to the next level has been thwarted by another tainted election.
He claimed that the manual tallying was suspect, leaving him no choice but to register the Kenya presidential election petition of 2013 in the Kenya's highest court, the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court dismissed his petition, Odinga flew to South Africa to avoid attending the inauguration of Uhuru Kenyatta, held on 9th April in 2013 at Moi Sports Complex at Kasarani in Nairobi.
The court has now spoken. Article 140 of our Constitution states that the Supreme Court shall hear and determine the petition, and its decision is final. Although we may not agree with some of its findings, and despite all the anomalies we have pointed out, our belief in constitutionalism remains supreme. Casting doubt on the judgment of the court could lead to higher political and economic uncertainty and make it more difficult for our country to move forward. It is my hope that the incoming government will have fidelity to our Constitution and implement it to the letter for the betterment of our people. And in this regard, I wish the President-elect, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and his team well. We must soldier on in our resolve to reform our politics and institutions. Respect for the supremacy of the Constitution in resolving disputes between fellow citizens is the surest foundation of our democratic society. It was clear that the constitutionally sanctioned process of electing new leaders had been thwarted again by another tainted election. Democracy was on trial in Kenya. But that has not dented my commitment to constitutionalism and the rule of law.
The swearing ceremony marked the end of his premiership. I take the journey on the history lane to explore the philosophy, ideology, leadership and the cost paid by great leaders of the Luo nation. Here is the journey of Mzee Oginga Odinga and his son Raila Odinga. My name